Good evening. It's about 10 minutes before 8 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. I just finished a very difficult conversation with my daughter about George Floyd. And to give you a little insight on my little girl, she absolutely despises racism. It turns on an anger within her that is unbelievable. And she's wanted me to speak my voice on this channel regarding that because she believes that I draw in a different sort of personality that needs to hear about this issue. I think the issue is very widely known, and I wonder, we all say, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus be speaking on these issues? Did Jesus speak up when John the Baptist was beheaded by Herod? I don't think he did. He didn't need to talk about it. They all knew it was wrong. They all knew who John was. They knew that there was no way that John had done anything wrong, but he lost his life because he stood for something greater, and he angered people. George Floyd stood for something greater, and he angered people, and he lost his life. Was it racism? Possibly. I think it runs deeper than racism. I think it runs simply to good and evil. And racism is one of the ways that evil sets people against each other. I don't believe it was an act of racism. I believe it was an act of pure evil. An act that's been used to try and inflame the public into violent action so that pure evil can get what it really wants, which is to unleash the military. If people think that the police are corrupt, can you imagine how violent the military will be if there's an uprising in the United States? Do you know how many Americans died during the Civil War? Did the Civil War change anything? There's no more slavery of that type. There's financial slavery. Jesus spoke about that. That's been going on forever. The debtor is the slave to the lender. Well, who are the lenders? The rich. Always have been the lenders. They're the ones with the money. The book of James says that, do you not know that it is the rich who persecute you and draw you into courts? I think the problem's there. The rich and the powerful want to stay rich and powerful. And in order for them to do that, they have to keep the people at odds with each other. They've got to keep us fighting amongst ourselves so that we don't stand up and claim what is ours. One day Jesus will come, and he will set these things right. And one of the people that's going to come back with him is going to be George Floyd. And he's going to be wearing a white robe, and he's going to be riding a horse, and he's going to be, if not next to, very close to Jesus Christ for what happened to him in this earth, what happened to other people. Right now is the last push for Satan. He's trying to get people who are attempting to live decently in an incredibly wicked, perverse world. He's trying to get those people emotionally inflamed so that they'll go out on the streets and so that they can then do what they really want to do, which is unleash the military. They want civil war. They want it. And if George Floyd isn't enough to start it, they'll think of something else. If you remember a few years back, there was a movie called The Hateful Eight. It was, Samuel L. Jackson, Kurt Russell, a few other people that I don't know, but it was one movie filled with violence and racial slurs, one side to the other, over and over and over again. That was meant to inflame. That was meant to get sensibilities angry enough. They're trying over and over and over again. What's the answer? What would Jesus do? What did Jesus do? John asked before he died, he says, are you the Messiah? Or do we need to look for somebody else? John couldn't understand, probably, I'm assuming, that John couldn't understand why he was in prison if his best friend was the Messiah. So but he didn't understand. None of us understand. Isaiah 55:9. God's ways are higher than our ways. We're not going to understand. But we have to have faith because we know that the word is true. Other people who have no faith have nothing else to fall back on except to try and change this world by themselves or to group together in a way that they can change this world. Has that ever worked? We started off killing each other with fists, sticks, stones, whatever we could grab. Now we've got machine guns that'll shoot 600 rounds a second. We've got atomic weapons. We've got very, 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 very good at killing. Have we ever gotten better at loving? Have we ever gotten better at being decent to one another? No. No. And the ones that are evil, the ones that really don't even want to attempt to get better at treating human beings like human beings, they just keep getting better at killing. And you're not going to stop them. That's the whole point. Do not lean upon your own understanding for answers to questions like this. You won't find them. They've never found an answer for it. That's why it continues this day. The only answer for it is Jesus Christ and what he says and what he did. Give to Caesar what's Caesar. If Caesar wants your life, he's going to take your life. But how you die makes a difference in the kingdom of God. Christians in the Colosseum were told, Caesar wants your life. And they said yes. There's not one instance of an apostle raising a sword. Many will say, well, Jesus says, sell your coat and buy a sword. You give me a biblical instance where an apostle or another Christian raised a sword in defense and wasn't rebuked by Jesus. Peter raised a sword. Jesus said, put it away. And then the damage that Peter did with the sword, Jesus put the ear back on and healed the man. That's not how we fight. We fight not against flesh and blood. Does the world understand that? No, they want blood for blood, arm for arm, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, all the rest of it. You can't win this fight that way. The only way to win this fight is to die with honor as a martyr or to live in peace as a person who brings peace to situations instead of causing unrest that then allows Caesar to bring out the guard. The last thing we want is civil war in the United States, but it may come to that. Will it come by you? Jesus says that these things must happen, but woe to him by whom they do happen. Are you going to be one of the people that brings these things out? That starts this civil war? That takes a small fire and turns it into a blazing inferno? The blazing inferno is coming. We're not going to stop that. The question is, where do you stand with God on these issues? Racism is wrong. It's always been wrong. It's always been here. What's the answer? The answer is to live like Christ. Love your neighbor. Love your enemy. Do good for them. You don't know that the person you hate today won't be your best friend tomorrow. A lot of people hate Christians. I was one of them. I did not like Christian people. I thought they were just wasting my time until I became one. Who knew? God knew. I didn't know. Don't let them bait you. Don't let them bait you into doing something violent so they can then bring out a greater force of violence and it escalates into a civil war. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen, but don't let it involve you. Do what's right. Read the Word of God. Find out what's right. And then do that. Don't trust my word for it. I've read it. I know what's right. I know what my reaction is going to be. You need to know what your reaction is going to be. Very soon, Jesus will come, and he will change the world. And he'll rule it with a rod of iron. And he's not going to strike people like me who want to live in peace. He's going to go after those people that put their knees on the necks of human beings. And he's going to rule them with a rod of iron. Because there is no law against love. There is no law against peace. The law he's going to lay down is going to be the law against violence, against hatred, against racism. That's the leader we're looking for. And no, it will not be a man who's on the earth today. If anyone comes to you and says that this person is the Christ, not a chance. The Christ we know will descend out of the sky, down to the Mount of Olives, putting his foot down. You ever heard somebody say, I'm putting my foot down? That means that's the end. End of conversation. My foot is down. That's it. End of conversation. When Jesus puts his foot on the Mount of Olives, it's over. And he will rule with a rod of iron against those that have survived, against those who think that they can still live lawlessly before God, who can still hate. And they'll receive what they've given. The rest of us, you don't have to worry about a rod of iron if you're not doing anything wrong. Don't do anything wrong. Allow God to have his day. Don't try and be God and make change. Allow God to change what he's going to change, and be patient. It will change. Oh, everyone says, when is the coming of the Lord? When? It's been this way for thousands of years. No, it hasn't. There's been greater change in the last 365 days than there have been through the last 365 years. And there's been a lot of change in 365 years, most of which is in the last 100 years. But you think about what just happened in the last 365 days, and you'll realize this world's going down fast. And Jesus said it would get worse and worse and worse until the end. And there was going to be a war that is going to be worse than any war has ever been or will ever be. Einstein said, I don't know what they're going to use in World War III, but I know what they'll use in World War IV. Sticks and stones. Why sticks and stones? Because in this next war, all technology will be destroyed, and that's all they'll have left. Sticks, stones, horses. That's what they're going to fight with. But we have to go through the worst of the worst. Some of us do, some of us don't. There's a thing called the rapture. Look at the rest of my videos to find out about that. This is about George Floyd. So the question is, what color is your soul? What color is your soul? I can see the color of people's skin. Some of us can see the color of a person's soul. But nobody knows when God's going to change that color. And the color choice is righteous or unrighteous. That's it. There's only two colors to a soul. Either one's righteous or one isn't. Nothing else matters. Christians are the most diverse community in the entire world. We take anyone, no matter what you've done, we take you. Jesus says, come. Whomsoever calls upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. There isn't a more diverse community in this world, and that's why we're hated. Because we express what true diversity means. We'll take anyone. Do we ask that you give up your sin? No. We ask that you want to give up your sin, that you earnestly try. Only God can take away sin. You can't get rid of it yourself. If you could, Jesus wouldn't have needed to come. All he wants to know is, do you want it? Do you want to try and live this way? Even if you can't. The tax collector and the Pharisee was standing there saying, boy, I'm glad I'm not like that guy. I'm glad I give. I'm glad I tithe. I do all these things. Meanwhile, the tax collector's on his knees going, oh God, why? Why am I this way? I can't change. I just don't know what to do. And Jesus says the tax collector's the one that's righteous. He's got the righteous soul. Doesn't say much for religion, but it sure says much for a humble heart that cries out to God. Call on the name of the Lord. You will be saved. The world is the way it is. If you haven't figured out that it's absolutely filthy, you aren't awake. First thing you have to realize is this isn't home. The next thing you have to realize is Jesus is the only way out. going to happen. It's all going to happen. It's written down. But don't be one of the people by whom it comes. Don't stand in the streets. Don't go out and give cause for the enemy to bring greater force upon the people. I guess that's all I got to say. God bless. Take care. Good night.